2022 was an interesting year for gaming. With the release of series such as Sonic Frontiers and God of War Ragnarok, a ton of seemingly silent gaming franchises have finally made their resurgence. But for me, this year I've been mostly playing indie games that don't get nearly enough attention that they deserve in my opinion. And that's what this video is kind of about. This is going to be a more personal one, as I'm going to talk about the top 5 games that I played this year. Please note that I'm not actually going to talk about games that only released this year. I'm just going to talk about the ones I played in 2022. So it's kind of like a weird top 5, but only with games I played instead of ones that released. But don't be worried, I readily assure you that every placement on this list is not only well deserving, but a game that's underrated that you should play. Many of you who watch me probably can already guess what the list is going to look like, but I got a feeling there's going to be a few surprises that y'all didn't see coming. Without further ado, let me stop wasting time and get into my top 5 games I played this year. For number 5 on this list, we have a Sonic game which I have personally enjoyed, and one that I think rivals Sonic Frontiers in terms of quality and gameplay. The game I am referring to is, of course, Sonic GT. When I first heard of this game, I actually couldn't believe it. We've had Sonic fan games like Sonic Utopia and Sonic Rush Adventure 3D, and dare I even say it, Sonic Omens. But there's never been a Sonic fan game that I think best encapsulates how Sonic should play in 3D better than Sonic GT. With its vast open worlds and purely momentum-based speed gameplay, it is up there with some of the most satisfying platforming in a Sonic game in my opinion. The thrill you get from building up momentum by sliding down slopes in your ball form only to burst into the air 500 feet above the ground is just purely exhilarating. And as a huge fan of the early 3D Sonic games such as Adventure and Adventure 2, I highly recommend, as any Sonic fan should, that you play this game, as I'm sure you're guaranteed to get a blast out of it, as I know I did. And the music in this game, goodness, it is up there with some of the best Sonic fan game music, such as Before and After the sequel, that I could find. Definitely appropriate for each level, and is simply mesmerizing to listen to, even outside of the game itself. The most memorable moment for me in this game was the beginning of Hilltop Zone. This reimagined 2D Sonic stage was perfectly reenacted in 3D, and has all the elements from the original Sonic 2 one, while also making it more recognizable and having its own unique flair to it, such as these gigantic lava mountains and slopes. I know it's pretty absurd to put a Sonic game, much less a fan-made one, on the top games I played in this year, but I cannot stress enough how fun Sonic GT is to play, and how great it pioneers ideas for how 3D Sonic should play. Definitely deserving of a spot on this list. Now, onto a gaming franchise which I have weirdly enough have never talked about on this channel before, considering its genre. For number 4 on this list, we have Freedom Planet 2, an absolutely amazing 2D platformer. Now, I've known about the Freedom Planet series for a while now, considering I'm a fan of Sparky Electric Jester, and they're kind of the 2 biggest indie games inspired from that franchise. And I even played Freedom Planet 1 earlier this year, but I gotta say, I didn't really like it since all of the things it did felt kind of, I don't know, dated, considering we had the likes of Spark 1 and Sonic Mania. I know the first Freedom Planet game came out during a time where people were nostalgic for the old classic gameplay of Sonic the Hedgehog, and the best that Sega had given us was Sonic 4 Episode 1, which, if you know anything about that game, it's not very good. Freedom Planet 1 had a lot of the issues that I don't like with classic Sonic, including adding some new ones, such as the disregard for iframes for some reason. When going into the second game, I expected a little of improvement on the mechanics of the original, a little tweaks for the voice acting here and there, but boy, was I in for a complete surprise to the absolutely crazy adventure that Freedom Planet 2 would provide me. First off, I just want to compliment the OST for the game itself. This soundtrack is probably better than Sonic Mania and Sparky Electric Jester 1 in my opinion. There's just so many quality tracks, as well as there being a hefty amount of quantity as well. There's just so many tracks in the game. Me simply making an OST video for every single song is easily the longest video on my channel. And I've gotta say, every single one of these tracks are quite memorable and quite engaging to the overall gameplay. The top tracks in the game I just want to say before I move on are Phoenix Highway, Carol's Theme, and Ancestral Forge. Now on to the actual game. The first thing that stood out to me in Freedom Planet 2 was the actual competent storytelling. The first game's story, while it was really good towards the end, it felt kind of hit or miss to me. I had to get used to the cheesy dialogue and the corny storytelling, but overall it was a charming story. Freedom Planet 2's story, however, ups the ante while also adding much needed drama to the storytelling that doesn't feel forced, while arguably having less stakes than the first game. We get introduced to a ton of new characters, a lot of interesting motivations, and some pretty surprising plot twists that I actually felt quite engaged with. Top that off with the phenomenal voice acting this time around. Seriously, Mayor Zhao is the best acted character in the game by far. And you have yourself a quite engaging and heartfelt story that doesn't take itself too silly or seriously. I still kind of like Freedom Planet's 2 ending with Lilac and Brevon, since that fight was just iconic, but Freedom Planet 2 beats the first one by a landslide just in terms of sheer quality improvement. Now onto that gameplay. Freedom Planet 2's gameplay is by far way better than the first game. First of all, the stage variety. Jeez, how many stages are in this game? I think over 24 in the main campaign alone, and that's not even to mention all of the 4 characters you can play as, which provide way and vastly different playstyles than the others. Once again, I chose Carol for this playthrough because I felt like Carol's just the most fun to play as she can do, cartwheels and roll into a ball and stuff, and her acrobatics and platforming feel more satisfying to play in my opinion. The overall speed, platforming, and exploration this time around feel so naturally ingrained to each other that you can kind of get into a surreal experience just playing through each level, kind of like the classic Sonic games, and the best aspects of those games in my opinion. The game can take you easily over a week to finish if you're not binge playing it like most people do. And the only real level that I had a problem with was Gravity Bubble, one of the stages towards the end of the game. Overall, my experience with Freedom Planet 2 far surpasses the one with Freedom Planet 1, and I am extremely excited to talk about this game more on this channel, as I'm pretty sure most people who watch my Spark content would greatly appreciate me incorporating some Freedom Planet 2 stuff, as I've already done. Now, the number 3 spot on this list is probably the most shocking to everybody on this channel, but if you follow me on Discord or anywhere else, you've known that I've been kind of obsessed with this recent RPG I've been playing, but it's not a new game by any means necessary. The game I am talking about is of course Crosscode. Crosscode is a 2D pixel isometric RPG that follows the character of Leah as she goes through this MMORPG in-game and interacts with a bunch of characters and tries to, well, I don't really know what the end goal for this character is, but right now I'm trying to get her voice back. Without any major spoilers into the story, I just gotta say, its story is one of its strongest aspects in the game. Multiple times throughout the story, I find myself just sitting there reading the dialogue, fully engaged with everything that's going on, which is actually pretty rare for a video game to do. Top that off with the gorgeous pixel art and the amazing art direction, and this game's story is clearly one of the selling aspects of the game itself. I felt myself getting pretty emotional to some of the more bigger moments throughout the narrative, and I'm assuming I'm only like halfway through the game so far, which I could be wrong about, but I don't know. But anyway, onto the main gameplay itself. Crosscode has one of the most satisfying combat systems I've actually played in an RPG of this kind. Ditching the idea of a turn-based battling style entirely, this game offers a more fast-paced, moment-to-moment gameplay combat system, and it is as every bit satisfying as any traditional RPG that I have played so far. That's not even mentioning the different elements you can fight with, the different special attacks, skill trees, gameplay styles, and even characters you can fight alongside with. This game has a nice multifaceted and varied combat system that is pretty unique all things considered. And finally, the main gameplay appeal in my opinion are the dungeons that the game has. So far, every dungeon in the game has just been this amazing aesthetic brain twister that has puzzles that genuinely stump me for 20 or even 30 minutes. Very reminiscent of the old Legend of Zelda games that have cryptic puzzles that are extremely satisfying to figure out on your own. The difficulty of Crosscode was also a major selling point for the game, and I've gotta say, it's some of the most satisfying difficulty that I have played in the game yet. To anybody who loves RPGs or even great storytelling in a video game, I highly recommend you play Crosscode, as it is the most underrated game I've probably played this year, and is definitely a game I'm looking forward to beating, as so far my playthrough of it has been nothing but masterful. Now, for those of you who are close viewers of the channel, this next pick shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but it might be because of how low it is on this list, and that is Spark the Electric Jester 3 for the number 2 spot. This game I have been looking forward to ever since I got into the series pretty much. Spark the Electric Jester has been a series that's meant a lot to me in terms of what it represents and the creator and community that it's fostered. And Spark 3, in my opinion, is just the culmination of this masterful franchise. It takes every aspect from the second game and improves upon it perfectly, while also adding some brand new stuff that just fit right into the series as a whole. From its amazing music as always, to its perfected 3D momentum-based platforming that rivals some of the best Sonic games, if not surpasses them, Spark the Electric Jester 3 is no surprise pick on this list, and I should probably just recommend it to everybody who's played the first 2 games, easily. I could go on and on about how Lake Pepper perfectly mastered the combat system for the game, which needed great improvement upon the second game, or how the amazing atmosphere of each level perfectly matches its tone with the music and overall aesthetics. But if you want a far more thorough review of Spark the Electric Jester 3, I have one on this channel that is pretty extensive with all the things I love about the game, and I highly recommend it to y'all because, man, this game is just a pure masterpiece. Now, before we get to the top spot, I just want to go over an honorable mention that I haven't talked about yet, and that honorable mention is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I've been a huge fan of Kirby for basically ever. If you see anything with my profile picture or my top 100 video game characters of all time, you know Kirby's at the top of that list. So you know, for his first 3D outing ever, I had to give that game a try. And while so far nothing has really impressed me, I can say that the game is satisfying to play and is as fundamentally Kirby as it gets. Definitely one of the top Nintendo games released this year, given the fact that it doesn't have much competition to work with. I've just not been able to play it that much, unfortunately, considering the fact that it's kinda boring the first hours into the gameplay, but I definitely recommend it to anybody who is a Kirby fan, even slightly. Alright, for the number 1 spot in this list, we have a game that I didn't think would impact me that much. I've known about this game for years and heard its praises, but I've never actually played it until this year, and when I finally did, it's easily the top game on this list. The game I am talking about is A Hat in Time. This game, man, it's just perfect. It feels so nostalgic even though it's only like 5 years old. This game has so much charm, personality, and overall good vibes to it that you just can't help but like it. I feel like even the most casual players who don't play video games that much will find this game to be absolutely memorable and mesmerizing. And the crazy part is the fact that the game doesn't really do anything unique, innovative, or even special. It's just a darn good 3D platformer. It takes every aspect, every expected trope, every convention of the traditional 3D platformer and impresses upon that to perfection. The characters are all charming, the voice acting is so stellar, the art style of the game looks like the traditional Wind Waker art style, which I personally find to be absolutely gorgeous, and the overall gameplay from level to level can only be described in a feeling that I would say is nostalgic, heartwarming, endearing, all of the feelings that just give you a sensational warmth, like the game you're playing is just pure bliss, perfection, and that you're fully immersed into every second of it. I personally remember that when I finally got to the finale of the game, it felt so jarring just because I was unaware of how much I've been playing up until that point. I had made it to the ending before I even knew it, and it didn't even feel like it. And speaking of that ending, dear God, I know that this game doesn't have the most complex story ever, but the ending scene with the Hat Kid and all the friends she literally made along the way, begging her to stay and not leave, almost brought a tear to my eye. A simple but excellent emotional payoff to the game's story, and a fantastic ending to what I would say is one of the best 3D platformers of all time. Definitely up there with the likes of Spark 3, but the only reason I put it above Spark 3 is because of the aforementioned ending and the overall cozy feeling that the game gives you. You just can't be sad while playing this game. It's impossible. I'm kind of upset that I never made a genuine review of A Hat in Time, as it's easily deserving of the greatest of all time videos that I've dedicated to other game franchises. But for all of those reasons and much more, I have A Hat in Time as the best video game I played this year. Thank you all for watching, and I would love to hear what y'all would choose as the picks for this year, as this year for gaming has been kind of wacky since we've had hits such as God of War Ragnarok, but also have taken some L's with the likes of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, so I don't know, it'll just be up to y'all to decide. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the PlexiTier channel. Peace.